You good, Tommy? Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Spoda, and I am the Director of Video Acquisition at Shutterstock. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our beautiful office here in the Empire State Building, right in the heart of New York City. I'd like to thank our partners ProductionHUB, Sony, and Video Guys for helping to sponsor this talk with our guest speaker, Robb Crocker. We will be having a question and answer session right after Robb's presentation. For those of you joining us via live stream, please feel free to type your questions in the chat room. We will also be live tweeting the event. We will be tweeting at Shutterstock REQ, that's Shutterstock REQ, and the hashtag is Stock Footage Millionaire. Based out of Portland, Oregon, Robb Crocker is an industry leader in the business of stock footage. From a single $2 sale in 2007, Robb and his team built a business, Uberstock, growing a stock footage library that has since boasted more than 70,000 purchases and has generated nearly $7 million in revenue and over $2.7 million in royalties. In addition to running Uberstock, Robb also heads up his video production business Funnelbox, where he's produced commercials for Nike, HP, and Intel, and he also heads up Flixio, an industry-leading digital signage content company. Robb is also an author, and he's recently published a book called Stock Footage Millionaire. I've read this book and simply said, the book covers it all. Robb has comprehensively compiled a complete guide to producing stock footage. From researching the market, pre-production, preparing budgets, scouting locations and planning shoots, to production, shooting and directing models and talent, to post-production, editing, transcoding, and color grading, and also the keys to preparing keywords and metadata. If you're new to the industry, you'll quickly learn how to produce commercially viable footage that will lead to higher earnings. And if you're already producing stock footage, you will discover new ways to up your game and ensure that you're maximizing the return on your investment. Robb joined Shutterstock as a contributor in 2013, and he has without a doubt taken our footage collection to the next level. It's my pleasure to introduce him to you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Robb Crocker.
All right, thank you, Tom. So I just want to start off by saying I'm a big fan of managing expectations. With that said, I'm not a professional speaker. So if your expectations are here on my speaking ability, I want to bring them right back down to here, all right? Let's make those a little bit more attainable. I'm also, not an expert on everything in regards to stock media. But what I do know better than anyone, however, is the path that we took at Uberstock to go from generating $50 a month in stock footage revenue to almost $40,000 a month in revenue. Also, I want to tell you one of the core values at Uberstock, as well as our parent company Funnelbox, is to underpromise and overdeliver. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you're willing to stick with me through this process and my low bar speaking ability, I will tell you that I will provide each and every one of you with at least one nugget or takeaway that should help you in your stock footage efforts in the future. So this presentation is going to be split into 4 parts. Part 1, I'm going to do just a really quick overview of our history, where we started at and where we are now, especially in regards to earnings. After that, I'm going to give you a very, very quick overview of Stock Footage Millionaire and what's covered in the book, what I think are the keys to success when it comes to producing stock footage. After that, we're going to dive into Chapter 4, a lot of the stuff I talk about in Chapter 4, which is really finding your niche and optimizing shooting footage in a niche that will help you generate more income. And then after that, like Tom said, we're going to do a Q&A. So let's get started. Who is this guy? Tom told you who I am. I am CEO and executive producer of Uberstock. And just as a quick overview, I'm going to give you a quick look at our portfolio that's part of 12,000 clips that we sell online, most of which are on Shutterstock. thank you. So Uberstock was actually born out of Funnelbox, which is a production company I started in 1999. A production company that produced TV commercials, sales and marketing videos, training videos, etc. I actually stumbled into stock footage. It was actually kind of an accident. Back in 2007, I was actually producing a TV commercial for a client that needed a cat to interact with their logo. So I was looking for some green screen footage of a cat. I looked all over. I could not find the footage, but what I did find was a couple stock footage microstock sites that ordinary producers like you and I could actually upload footage and make money from. So after we finished that production for the client, I thought, man, that's pretty intriguing. I should take a look into that. And what I did was I wanted to figure out a way I could test it. So what I did is I went back to some of our pro bono work that we had done, and I found some B-roll clips, some outtakes that we had never used. And what I did is I took those and I uploaded them. I uploaded 19 clips. There were clips from a golf tournament that were shot. There were clips from some ocean footage. And there were clips from some film leader junk kind of stuff. There were 19 clips. We uploaded those, and after a couple weeks, we actually got our first sale. It was a $2 sale. And I thought, man, that's pretty cool. A few days later, we got another sale, and I thought, man, there might be something to this. So I decided to do a little more research. I looked online to see what was available, what was selling, what wasn't there, and I realized there wasn't much golf footage. Now, I'm a golfer. I've been golfing for almost 30 years, and I thought, well, this would be a low-risk way to test it out. So my brother and I went out to the golf course, and we shot some footage. This is the first clip we ever uploaded. We went around the golf course. We shot me swinging a golf club, swinging drivers, swinging wedges, making putts. We got about 30 or 40 clips, and we uploaded them. Well, within a couple weeks, we started selling golf footage, and that got my mind cranking even more. So I thought, I should research a little bit more. So I did, and I looked at what was available, what was selling. It looked like lifestyle footage was kind of a cool seller. So I thought, well, what resources do I have that I can shoot some lifestyle footage that's pretty low risk? We had some friends who had 3 adorable daughters. Now, I live kind of out in the country, and I live on 5 acres, and we have a field. So I thought, well, let's bring the girls out, and we'll shoot some lifestyle footage of some girls in a field. And that's what we did. So we shot these 3 little girls. We shot them at magic hour, walking away from the camera, walking towards the camera, running in the field, sitting in the field. Again, it was just me, a camera, these 3 girls, and their parents. And I probably shot 50 clips. Within a couple weeks of uploading that footage, it started selling really well. So well, in fact, that I thought, okay, there might be something real about this stock footage thing. This might be really, really good. How good? Here's how good. So in 2007, April 2007 was our first month. We made just about 50 bucks. Within a year of investing time, resources, and being persistent, we had a library of probably 1,000 clips, and we were making about $6,000 a month within 12 months. As that continued to grow, and we continued to invest and continued to make a concerted effort to make this a real business, we peaked in January 2012 at $39,523, just short of $40,000. At the time, we were exclusive. After that, in January, as you can see, our earnings started to dwindle a little bit, and we realized that maybe exclusivity wasn't the route we wanted to stick with, and we decided that we would test out going non-exclusive. So in September of 2013, we actually went non-exclusive, and we put all our content on Shutterstock, as well as a couple other sites. As you can see, we definitely took a hit. In December of 2013, we went down to 16. We hit a bottom of $16,295 for that month. But as you can see since then, by uploading to those other sites, we've actually climbed back up to where we're projected this month to do over $35,000 in revenue. And I expect that we're going to climb past our peak, which was in December of 2012. So how did I do it? How did we do it? Because it's a team. A lot of hard work, a great team, a lot of patience, persistence, and frankly, a little bit of luck. As with anything in life, hard work goes a long way. And we dug in and we went after it. And we spent a lot of time, money, and resources really developing our portfolio so we can make more sales. Also, for me personally, I relied on a team. I have a team that helps with producing. I have a team that helps with casting. I have a team that helps with post-production process, with uploading, metadata, the whole 9 yards. It sounds like a huge team, but it's only a few of us, and we managed to do all of it. Very, very important to our success was having that team. It also takes patience. there are often times when we will shoot content, footage, upload it, and it may not sell for months. As a matter of fact, of our 12,000 clips, there's probably 40% of that has never sold at all, and probably it may never will. But there's also a small percentage of our clips that sell a lot, and we generate a lot of income from those clips. And that just takes patience and faith that it actually will work for us. It also takes persistence. You know, there's this concept of priming the pump. So in the old days, when you used to have to hand pump water out of the ground, you used to have to prime the pump and pump and pump and pump and pump, and nothing would come out. And if you gave up before the water came out, you'd have to start all over again. But if you kept pumping, eventually the water would come out. Once the water started coming, you didn't have to pump as hard. That's what it's like with our portfolio and stock footage. You know, it took us a while to get that pump primed. It took us a while to get that revenue flowing, but once we did, it started working really well for us, and it continues to work well. And then finally, luck. So as with anything in life, sometimes you have to be at the right place at the right time. Now, we were very fortunate to start when we did, which was 2007, very early in this industry. But it also takes luck in regards to what you shoot, how you shoot, and et cetera. So you might have, you know, occasionally we'll have the perfect talent in the perfect location at the perfect magic hour with the perfect action. And that clip will somehow be seen by a creative director or an art director at a big agency, and they'll want to buy, you know, 10 clips from that collection. Well, as soon as they do that, because they just happen to be looking for that clip at that time, as soon as they do that, it shoots up in the rankings on the sites. Now, Shutterstock, nobody at Shutterstock or any of the content sites will tell you exactly how the rankings work, but I will tell you, the more you sell, the more you sell. So if you sell a clip, it becomes more popular and it will sell more. There is luck that plays into that. It's the right content at the right time in front of the right person. Now, there's a saying that the harder you work, the luckier you get, and I truly believe that. So a lot of our luck comes from hard work, but there is definitely an aspect of luck. So if we talk about how we did it, then I can talk about how you can do it if you're not already doing it. And I will tell you this exact same thing. It's hard work, a great team, patience, persistence, and luck. So let's talk about expectations. You know, before I get everyone riled up about making $30,000 a month, I want to be clear that what I'm talking about and what I wrote about in the book, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not. It takes patience. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes talent and, frankly, a bit of luck. But I will say that anybody who's here who isn't already making money and anybody who's watching online, you can make money shooting stock footage. Just as importantly as making money, though, is you can have a lot of fun. I love shooting stock footage. There are 3 reasons that I love shooting stock footage. The first one is I don't have any clients. You know, I can shoot what I want, when I want, how I want, where I want. It's pretty awesome. The market will reward me for my insight. The market will reward me for my hard work. That's what I love about stock footage. Another thing I like about a stock footage is once you develop that portfolio and you build that portfolio up and you start selling, it creates a cash flow stream for you. All of a sudden, you're not working and trading your time for money. You're trading your talents and your insight for money. Once you develop that portfolio, you can take a week off. It's still going to sell. You can take a month off. It's still going to sell. Now, there is a law of diminishing returns. I mean, once you have a clip, it does peak, and it will eventually peter out. But as long as you keep creating new content, you're always going to have that revenue stream. That's what I love about stock footage. And finally, I love stock footage because it's fun. It really is. I really enjoy shooting stock footage. And how much money you make is really mostly dependent on how committed you are and how hard you want to work at it. So let's talk about finding success in stock footage. So success in this field requires equal parts artistic talent as well as logical execution. You can shoot the most brilliant shot with the perfect talent, the perfect location, perfect lighting, perfect camera work, perfect color grade. But if you don't process it properly, if you don't upload it properly, if you don't keyword it properly, if you don't market it, you're never going to sell anything. The flip side of that coin is you can shoot the most technically perfect footage. You can upload it perfectly, metadata, keywording, marketing. But if the content is flat, if it's not reaching the right buyer, if you don't have the right talent, it's not going to sell. So it's equal parts arts and science. So what are the keys to success in stock footage production? And I go over all these in the Stock Footage Millionaire. There are keys like finding the right talent, finding the right locations, efficient post-production, camera work, lighting, uploading, keywording, marketing. There's a lot of things that goes into being successful in this industry. One of the things I'm going to talk about now, though, that I think is extremely important is finding your niche. I talk a lot about this in chapter 4, but I'm going to talk about it today. So in Stock Footage Millionaire, I talk about 2 ways that you can find your niche. One is to predict the future, and 2 is to really leverage your experience, talents, and resources to find that niche and develop that niche. Let's talk first about predicting the future. Wayne Gretzky was arguably one of the greatest hockey players to ever play. And when you talk to Wayne, he said he never skated to the puck, he skated to where the puck was going to be. So in regards to stock footage, that's what we want to do. We want to try and skate to where the puck will be. We don't want to look at what's selling today. We want to think about what's selling tomorrow. So how do we do that? We look at the world around us. We look at our local community. We look at our region. We look at our country. We look at the world. We look at what's going on with news. We look at what's going on with current events, visual trends, lighting trends. I mean, if you look at a lot of the footage that's being used now in TV commercials or movies, for instance, one thing that's really popular right now is lens flares. I mean, there's a lot of footage right now that's being used with lens flares. Now, 20, 30 years ago, lens flares were an absolute no-no. You never wanted to have lens flares in your content. Who knows, in 20 or 30 years, that lens flares might be out again. But for right now, they're really popular. That's one way that you can really look at what's going on and kind of figure out what the trend's going to be in the future. So once you do that, once you look at trends, whether it be in social events or maybe an aging population or the healthcare reform or energy, you really need to develop a hypothesis on where you think the market is going to go. So where's the media market going? What's the kind of content that people are going to want, not necessarily today, but tomorrow, next month, next year? It's important to kind of think about that. Now, some of it might be relevant today, but what you really should think about is what's going to be relevant tomorrow. A great example of this is the iPad. So in 2009, as all of us know, Apple came out with the iPad. Now, astute producers immediately grabbed an iPad knowing that it would probably be a hit, and they shot content with people using iPads, either in lifestyle footage, in business footage, in all kinds of footage. We weren't that astute. I mean, we didn't shoot any iPad content really till 2010, but one of the clips we shot was this clip of a young man on a bus with an iPad. It sold incredibly well. It's not that difficult to shoot, but it's the right kind of content with some interesting lighting, and it sold really well. Now, another example is in 2007, 2008, many of us remember when Apple came out with the iPod and they had that campaign with silhouette dancers. You guys remember that, where they had dancers dancing to music and they had the white earbuds? Well, we saw that and thought it was pretty cool, and we thought other people would think it was cool too. So we went out and we hired some hip-hop dancers and some break dancers, and we shot them on a green screen. And we produced a series of these type of silhouette dancers. This content in 2008, 2009 was our best-selling content. We made a lot of money with this content, all because we saw what Apple was doing and thought other people would want this kind of stuff. Now, since 2009, 2010, this hardly sells at all because that trend has kind of come and gone. But at the time, we made a lot of money because we thought about, we looked at what was going on in the immediate now, and we thought about how people were going to probably want to emulate that in the future, and it worked really well for us. Another example you can think about is with touch technology. So people are using touch on their phone, on their iPads, on computers. And as marketers continue to show applications being used, they need content of people swiping and pinching and rotating. So we shot a bunch of content on green screen of hands doing that, different kinds of hands. And a bunch of other producers have done it too. We're certainly not the only ones. We probably weren't the first. While that is sold pretty well, there's enough people who have done it that we don't sell a ton of it, but that's just another example how to think about what's going on in the market, in the world, and producing content for that. Another way to develop your niche is to think about leveraging your resources. So leveraging people that you have or know or are close with, leveraging locations, unique locations that you might have access to, and or leveraging unique props or equipment. So for instance, there's a contributor I interviewed for the book. His name's John Neff. John was a technician at a medical facility. And when he started in the stock footage business, he got permission from his boss to actually shoot footage in the medical facility. So he shot himself pretending like he was a doctor looking at x-rays. He shot nurses in the facility. He shot a bunch of stuff, and he built a nice little portfolio, which actually sold really well. It sold so well, in fact, that when the turn in the economy came, and he was laid off from his job, he didn't go find another job. He became a full-time stock footage producer, and now he makes a living shooting stock footage. You know, another example is to utilize props or equipment. So, does your father-in-law fly helicopters? Shoot some aerial footage. Are you a scuba instructor? Get an underwater housing and shoot underwater footage. For me personally, one of my best resources are my daughters. So I have 3 daughters that obviously I think are pretty adorable. They also grew up around the camera, so they're comfortable in front of a camera. I've shot a lot of footage of my daughters. I don't shoot them a ton. I make it more of a treat rather than, you know, I don't force them to ever shoot. If they don't want to shoot, I don't do it. But what I have been able to do with my daughters is really leverage their cuteness, and they won't be so cute, I'm sure, when they're teenagers. But I've been able to leverage their cuteness along with my wife once in a while, and we've shot content that's actually sold really well. So all that to say, you know, what are the things that you can leverage to develop your niche? You need to be thinking about that. In addition to resources, available resources, you really need to think about how to play to your strengths. So do you have experience or a deep knowledge about a subject that makes you uniquely qualified to shoot content? If you do, that can be a huge benefit. You know, what are you passionate about? What can you shoot that you are uniquely qualified to shoot to really help show viewers and buyers an authentic angle on that content? Again, for me, I grew up playing sports. I grew up playing, you know, basketball, golf. So that kind of stuff's easy for me, as well as my kids. I'm comfortable around them. For you, you might work at an engineering office and know how engineers act. You might be a musician and you know what a band does. All that to say, you need to think about what are your strengths, what are you good at, what do you know that's different than anybody else, and then really try and play to those strengths. In addition to playing to your strengths, it's also important to think about your end buyer before you shoot anything. So think about the end user. Now, it's impossible to know exactly who's going to buy your clip, especially before you shoot it. But you can make some hypotheses based on what kind of content you're shooting. So is it going to be an ad agency? Is it going to be a church? Is it going to be a university? Is it going to be a corporate HR director? Is it going to be a small business owner? As you think about the type of content you want to shoot, you should also think about the potential buyer who's going to buy it, because that should influence how you shoot. If you're shooting for an ad agency, you might want to shoot something that's a little more dramatic with the lighting, with the camera work. If you're shooting for an HR department, you want to make sure and include a lot of diversity in your shots, because that's very important. As a matter of fact, I've heard from people that I believe it's the federal government. Anytime they do a video, if there's ever more than 3 people in the scene, there has to be at least 3 different races in the scene. So you got to keep that in mind as you're shooting your content. Who's the potential end buyer? A great example I have is some footage I shot of an MMA fighter who also boxes. We shot some footage and I wanted to shoot it, and I wanted to shoot it very dramatically. I wanted to light it unique. I wanted to have some cool angles, and we did. I thought, you know, by shooting it this way, we'd be able to get some cool exposure in front of some art directors and people who are looking for that kind of footage. And that's exactly what happened.
It takes intense preparation, finesse, and precision to be crowned as the king in a unanimous decision. It bobs and it weaves around every corner. With its hit list of features, this car is a performer. So roll on to victory with the path of least resistance. The new 2014 Scion TC is made to go the distance.
So the first time I ever saw this spot, I was actually sitting in a bar watching a basketball game, and I saw this come on. I'm like, man, that's really cool, because that's my footage. I shot that. Having no idea it was bought by an agency, but it's really cool to see that stuff. And they used it pretty much in the way I wanted them to, and I thought that they would. That commercial is almost based on my stock footage. I mean, they shot the stuff with the car, but basically the foundation of the commercial is using our stock footage. Now, I'm sure that they came up with the creative concept before they saw our footage and wanted to use a boxer. When they found our stuff, they thought, man, this is just as good as what we can shoot for 40 or 50 grand. We might as well just use this. And they saved a ton of money, and it fulfilled, you know, kind of my vision for how the footage would work. Another example, which proves my point, but in a different way, is a spot we did, or we didn't produce a spot, is some footage we shot of some chickens. So I don't know about here where you guys live, but on the West Coast, and especially in Oregon where I'm from, it's really hip and trendy now to have pet chickens. We have some pet chickens. And I thought it would be cool to shoot some chicken footage. So when we got some chicks, we shot them on white cyc, we shot them on green screen, and as we were post-producing this green screen footage, one of the producers thought it would be fun and funny to actually put chicks on a disco stage. And I thought, that's ridiculous, that's stupid, nobody's ever gonna buy that. We made a wager. I said, nobody's ever gonna buy this. We made a wager for lunch. She said, I bet somebody will buy it. Here's what happened.
Cuban, Cajun, raw seafood, pizza parlor, French fondue, Tex-Mex froyo, tapas puck, Chinese takeout, taco truck, free-range chicken, pancake stack, baked Alaska, 5% cash back. Right now, get 5% cash back at restaurants. It pays to discover.
Now, somebody bought it. I did have to buy lunch, but I think it sold twice, ever. It just happened one time. It was an agency who used it for a Discover Car commercial. It's kind of fun to see it, but it was a really lousy return on investment of our time and our money, which, again, goes to prove my point. If you're producing footage, think about who's going to use it. I mean, there's no way we could think that anybody would want to use that footage. And like I said, it sold twice. Again, there's a saying by Confucius. He said, the unaimed arrow never misses. And what he means by that, if you're not shooting for something, in my opinion, if you're not shooting for a specific buyer, you know, anything's going to do. If you can produce content thinking with the buyer in mind, and again, utilizing your strengths and looking at where the market's going, I think you're going to do really well. If you think about that, you know, you will allow those decisions with that buyer to influence who you cast, influence how you light, what kind of camera you use, what kind of focal lengths you use, how you do your color grade, et cetera, et cetera. It's very important to think about your end buyer. Along with that, I want to talk about something in the book. I talk about perpetual niches. So a perpetual niche is some subjects that are basically always in high demand. So if you think about healthcare, energy, lifestyle, business, I mean, that's kind of content that's always going to sell well. People are always looking for that. And if they buy it one month, usually they're looking for new stuff the next month. That's called the perpetual niche. So if you can align your strengths, your resources, and think about where those perpetual niches are going, you can set yourselves up for success. Which brings me to don't follow the herd. So a lot of times people will see clips that sell really well in a specific niche, especially a perpetual niche. And they'll think, well, that's good, that's making a ton of money, I can shoot something better than that. And what they try and do is emulate that so closely, in fact, that it's almost copying. I will tell you, it never works. Buyers are looking for original content, authentic content. The people who produce those clips the first time, who think originally, those are the people who make the most money. The people who try and follow, it never pays off for them, I will tell you that. A great example is time-lapse clouds. You can talk to anybody here at Shutterstock, and I bet they'll tell you that they probably have thousands of time-lapse clouds clips. And they probably reject a bunch because they have so many. Now, this is a great clip from a contributor that shows up at the top of the search results if you type in time-lapse clouds. And I'm sure it sold really, really well. And I'm sure people have seen that, and they've tried to emulate that. And what happens is, because it's already at the top of the search results, the new stuff never shows up. Now, unless they're doing something completely unique, like a unique location or unique color grade or something like that. Generally, when you try and copy something, it never works out for you. So I would encourage you to be original, think original, and produce original content. It will work out for you better in the long run. With that, I also want to say that it's important when you're shooting footage to do what you love. The money will come if you do what you love, if you shoot what you're passionate about, you shoot your resources that you have available. You know, even if you want to make this your full-time gig, if you focus on shooting what you're good at, shooting what you love, it'll shine through. It'll come through in the content. It'll look more authentic. It'll look like there was more care put into it. If you're just shooting content like a factory, just because you feel like you have to, that'll show too, and buyers won't buy it. It won't look authentic. It won't look like the kind of footage that they want. If you do what you love, if you shoot what you love, shoot what you know, you will reap the rewards. I also want to talk about the importance of investing in you. So if you are serious about really learning how to maximize your return on investment in stock footage, you know, you need to take the time to invest in yourself. And if you do, you can absolutely make money in this industry and have a lot of fun. You know, if you want to learn, you can visit the bulletin boards on some of the sites. You can read some of the blogs. There's some people who blog. If you can download some incredible guides. Shutterstock has some incredible guides on shooting stock footage and what you need to do, and also learning from others. Now, that said, I will tell you, most of the top contributors aren't on those bulletin boards. Most of the top contributors, many of whom I consider, you know, really close friends, we don't hang out there. I mean, we're more worried about looking at the market. We're more worried about pre-production. We're more worried about shooting and uploading and actually generating income. So just keep that in mind as you read those blogs. Another great way to invest in you is reading Stock Footage Millionaire. So for everybody who's here, gets a free copy. But in that book, I mean, I lay out the whole thing about how top contributors really make money, from pre-production to researching the market to post-production, etc. Most contributors, top contributors, don't want to take the time. I just happen to have a soft spot for mentoring and teaching, and I really enjoy doing that, and that's why I wrote the book. Along with that, you know, if you're serious about stock footage, I'd also encourage you to visit Stock Footage Millionaire, the website. If the demand is there, and I think it is, we are going to develop some online training, some online mentoring, and probably do some in-person boot camps to really teach people and take them through the process of what we do to produce content. So if you go to stockfootagemillionaire.com, you can sign up for that, and we'll tell you more about it. Stock footage is fun. It's exciting. It's a growing market. As a matter of fact, if you talk to the folks at Shutterstock, they will tell you, and it's public knowledge, that stock footage is one of their fastest growing segments of their business. All that to say, if you're willing to invest the time, the energy, and the effort, you too can really become a stock footage millionaire. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob, for that great presentation. We'll now be able to ask Rob some questions. For those, that includes our audience tuning in on a live stream. If you would like to ask some questions, just type your questions in on the chat window on the live stream. For those in the audience, please make sure you speak into the mic directly. Rob, if you could repeat the questions for our live stream audience, that would be great.
Could you talk a little bit about how long HD 1080p will penetrate a market and how long 4K will have a run?
Yeah, so the question was, how long do I think 1080p is going to be around, and how long is it going to take for 4K to really penetrate the market? I'm probably not the right one to answer that question. I bet the folks at Shutterstock could answer that better. We are selling some 4K content, but it's not there yet. I mean, in my opinion, this is strictly my opinion, you have to have shows and content that are actually being shown through TVs on 4K and 4K broadcast. I think that will kind of kickstart the whole 4K desire. Now, there are agencies, there are folks who are buying 4K just because they want that extra resolution and they want to future-proof so they can use it in the future. I shoot as much as we can. We shoot 4K. So we have 3 RED cameras, and we also have a Panasonic GH4. So as much as possible, we're shooting 4K. But 1080p is still the bulk of what's being purchased.
Do you shoot travel? And if so, how well do the clips sell?
Do I shoot travel? And if so, how well do they sell? We don't shoot travel very often. Now, once in a while, if I'm going on a trip, I might schedule an extra day or two. In the book, I actually talk about a trip I went on last spring to Greece, and I actually had my team find some talent, and I went out and shot some footage with talent in Greece. The stuff that we've shot that's travel related always involves people, so we almost always shoot content with talent. That's just what we like to do, what we're good at. So the answer is I haven't shot much travel. I don't know how well it sells, but I'm sure there's people who do that it does sell well, I would imagine.
How many full-time staff in your company including you, making stock footage in your company?
Yeah, great question. So the question is, how many full-time staff do I have with Uberstock? So Funnelbox is my primary business. It's a production company. We have about 25 full-time people. Now, of those 25, there's 2.5 that basically spend all their time on stock footage. So, but we borrow resources from Funnelbox to like when we go on shoots, we use Funnelbox folks. So you know, if I was just doing stock, it'd probably be 3.5 or 4 people.
So I'm curious about how you know when it's a good time to take a risk and spend a little bit more money on a given production. So if there's something that you're interested in shooting, but you know it's going to be a more expensive shoot, maybe the location costs a lot of money. How can you tell when it's going to be worthwhile to do that, and when you should maybe wait and hold off?
That's a fantastic question. So the question is, how do we know when to make a bet on a shoot? Like, we think it's something that will sell well. How do we know when we should invest some extra money in shooting that? For me, it's an educated guess. So we look at kind of what the trends are. We look at what we're already selling, and if it makes sense and we have resources available, we'll do it. Now, there's other contributors. A great example that I talk about in the book is Daniel Hurst and Luke Miller, who formerly were known as Morgan L. They were amazing contributors. They bet big early on, I believe in 2009, on buying a Phantom high-speed camera. It costs a lot of money. It's a 6-figure purchase, but because they were the first ones to do it, they reaped a huge reward on that. It was a huge risk, but they reaped a huge reward. Now, I've done the same thing. You saw that some of our content is football, and we've actually hired full football teams, which is not cheap. We did pretty well on our first couple football shoots, and I thought, well, let's go big. And we hired a bunch of people. We hired referees, and I thought it would be fun to shoot a little more stylized, so it was very, very dramatic. We spent $40,000 on that shoot, and that was 3 years ago, and we haven't even come close to recouping those costs. So there is definitely risk-reward with that.
You started to go into this a little bit, but I'm assuming the graph you showed was gross amounts you receive per month. And how do you budget? What's your return on investment, and how do you budget how much to spend and how much income you make based on that?
Yeah, great question. So the question was, how do we budget for our shoots? How do we decide what we want to shoot? For us, it's a little bit more art than science. We definitely, because we have a nice library, we can see generally what kind of returns we get on what types of shoots that we do. So we'll look at that and see how long it generally takes to recoup that money, and then we'll allocate some budget to the shoot to say, look, we think we'll make this money back in a year. And that's generally kind of our guide, is if we're pretty confident we can make our investment back in a year, and know that after a year that's going to be profit, we'll do it.
Sorry it took so long. I had a question about releases, because say that you're in Times Square, you're getting some great crowd shots. What happens about releases? Do you go up and casually, do you have to get releases from all the people that are seeing visually? I mean, I do films and usually have to use actors from SAG. And so what is the story with that for stock? Because I have a lot of stock footage of crowds, but what about releases?
Yeah, I talk about that in the book. Releases for us, what we shoot, we don't really shoot any editorial. If you shoot it as editorial, you don't need releases. But if you shoot it for royalty-free, so editorial can be used in news programs and so on and so forth. And I'm not an attorney. I'm just telling you what I know with my limited knowledge. When we shoot, we always get releases. So if we're shooting in New York, we need to make sure that we frame things that you can't see anybody else. So we try to use shallow depth of field. We try and frame things in a way that you can't see other people. And you can see blurred out people in the background as long as you can't tell, as long as you can't identify them, then you're okay doing that. Also, sometimes, if you shoot time lapses, you can put kind of a motion blur on things so you can't really identify faces. But if you're shooting royalty-free content and you can see faces, you have to have their releases. And there's a lot of great resources on the legal aspect of that on the Shutterstock site.
Hi. So a couple questions. One, you talk mostly about video. I'm just curious whether you do any photography as well, and what's the dynamics kind of between one over the other, because I do photography, I'm curious there. And second of all, how do you track statistics? Like, I know there's a lot of sites and stuff talk about how to manage statistics, and even pulling that stuff off of Shutterstock. How do you go about really seeing, again, your ROIs and how things are working? And do you just grab that and do it internally, or what are your resources there?
Great question. So 2 questions. One, do we do photos? And if so, what's the dynamic? And the other is, how do we track our metrics? So the first one, we don't do any photos. The types of camera we're shooting with now, 4K and even 5K, in theory we probably could, but for us, we're just really comfortable with footage, and that's what we do. And I've heard from photographers, they're really comfortable with photos, and they don't really like doing footage. So that's kind of how we are as well. In regards to tracking metrics, we use Stock Performer, which is a website that aggregates stuff. And in Stock Performer, whenever we upload a series of clips from a shoot, we put it in a collection, and Stock Performer will actually track the performance on those. You can do the same through each individual site. If you only sell through Shutterstock, you can track portfolios, but we use Stock Performer to track our performance.
What equipment and cameras would you suggest for someone just starting out?
So the question is, what equipment and cameras would I suggest for somebody just starting out? Great question. I think if you ask 10 shooters who are really good, you'll get 10 different answers. I think if at all possible, and I talk about this in the book, you should try and shoot 4K. Not because it's selling really well right now, but because it will be relevant for years, probably for the next at least 10 years before the next format comes out. So if you can, I would look at trying to buy a 4K camera. We do own one of the Panasonic GH4s, and it's a great camera, but we also own some Reds. But that said, if you can't afford that, there's a lot of really great cameras that shoot 1080p that are fantastic, and you can get them for a lot less money. So as much as possible, I suggest people shoot 4K only because it makes it future-proof. But if they can't, there's a lot of great 1080p cameras as well.
I have a quick question. In terms of marketing for log footage or graded footage, is there a market for putting log grade footage or just like flat footage on Shutterstock or anything like that? Would that make money?
Flat footage?
Like just log flat, flat profile? No color grading?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, great question. So, so you're talking about log like red, R3D kind of stuff? Yeah, so it's funny, some contributors do put flat footage and just say, hey, look, people who download it are going to do their own color grade. Other contributors like Uberstock, we prefer to color grade our stuff. Now, Daniel Hurst, who was Morganell, who's now Via Films, I think he generally just does a really quick adjustment on the levels and stuff, but he doesn't do a full-on color grade. So his process is much more efficient than ours. And he sells a lot of footage. He sells more than we do, so he does really well, yeah.
So you shoot with GH4 and also with the red. And compared to the stuff you shot with GH4, does it make more money, much more money to shoot with red because it's higher quality?
Great question. So the question is, shooting on a GH4, which is a much less expensive camera, over a red. Does it make a difference? And honestly, the people who are buying footage, from what I know and from what I've experienced, they don't really care what kind of camera it's shot on. What they're looking for is great content that fits what they're looking for. So with Funnelbox, my production company, we also buy footage, and I could care less if it's shot on a GH4 or a red. I'm looking for content that fits my need, that looks good, looks authentic, it's well composed.
Hi, I have two questions. First question is about what do you think about RM footage, rights managed footage?
Okay.
Like, do you think there is still a future in that market, or? And the second question is about 4K footage. Like, how much time you spend on editing it, or because 4K, do you change the color, saturation, to the way that it looks good in a thumbnail size, or you kind of leave it as it is so that people can do whatever they like to do after they purchase?
Right. Okay, so I'm sorry, the first question again was? Rights managed. Yeah, the future of rights managed is their market. We don't shoot specifically for rights managed, but I do know there are people who do shoot footage specifically for rights managed, and especially if it's highly stylized or it's a niche market, there's still a market for it. I don't think the Shutterstock doesn't do rights managed. There is a market for it. Obviously, you're not going to sell that footage as much. So if you're interested in rights managed, I would definitely shoot content that's extremely unique because it's not going to sell that often, not nearly as often as royalty free. But you can make money doing it. As far as the 4K question, do we spend a lot of time in post-production, color grading and stuff? We do, but there are other contributors who don't. I couldn't tell you which sells better, I really couldn't. My opinion is when somebody sees something online, most of the buyers just want to download it and pop it into their project. Most people are using stock footage because it's quick, easy, and inexpensive, so they just want to grab it and put it in their project. Now, there are some agencies and some post-production companies that want to buy some content, and they do want to do their own color grade. So I guess in my opinion, it's use your choice. I think it's worth it for us because I want to have the nicest image available for people to see. So that's why we spend the time, but there are others who don't, and they just concentrate on being much more efficient in post-production.
I just want to ask a follow-up to that, but is there any harm in just uploading both? It would be so easy to upload the ungraded footage, and do you do that?
We don't. I don't think there would be harm. I think that would be a question for Shutterstock.
Yeah, that's one thing I always talk to my contributors. I always say to grade it a little bit to make it look attractive to the buyer. You don't want to leave it flat and ungraded. You just want to give it a little saturation, but enough room for so the customer can grade the footage. Yeah.
I think, does Shutterstock allow R3Ds or not?
No.
Okay. So at some point, that might be an option, and people can do what they want. Yeah.
Any more questions? We got one over here.
Is there a minimum length of a clip? Like, would you take a 30-second clip and chop it up into two 15-second clips if they're like the boxing? Like, if the guy's continuously going, when you chop it up, like, what length of clips tend to sell better than others?
Great question. So the question is, what length of clips tend to sell better than others? When we're editing, when we're editing our footage to upload, I try and think of the content and the clips in the eyes of the editor. So whoever's going to be downloading this clip, what's the chunk of that clip that they're going to want? So I try and give them enough head room. So giving them enough of the footage before the main action, and I try to give them tail room so they can edit it how they want. In regards to length, I haven't found that length is that much of a determination on how well it sells. It's more about the action, what's going on in the clip. That's more important. Obviously for a buyer, if it's a clip and you can make it 30 seconds as opposed to 7, I definitely do that because I think they're more likely to want to purchase something where they have more room to make the edit. But I haven't found any correlation between sales and the length of clips. It's more about the action.
Can a stock footage company be successful if it's run by a producer who pays for the production and hires the directors and crew?
So the question is, can a stock footage company be successful if they pay for the directors and hire the crew? Sure, certainly. If you shoot the right stuff, if you're able to hire them at the right rate, if it has the right look, it's a little bit more risky because you're going to be investing more, but if you know what you're doing, if you get amazing content, absolutely could pay off. In the book, I talk about kind of 3 ways that you can go about shooting stock footage. There's lean and mean, where it's like basically you and a camera, like me and the 3 girls in the field. It keeps your expenses super low, and then you keep basically the money that you make. There's go for the gusto, which is basically what we did with that football shoot. I mean, we spent a ton of money. That one didn't pay off for us, but there's other times when it will pay off for us. And then there's kind of the middle route, which is generally where we live. We might spend $2,000 to $3,000 a shoot, in which case we'll use our own internal staff, but then we'll hire freelance gaffers and grips and sometimes even cinematographers for that. So 3 different styles. If you're willing to bet big, sometimes you can win big, but sometimes you can strike out too.
Any more questions? That's it. Thanks for all those great questions. We're going to wrap up the Q&A. And we're also going to say farewell to our live stream audience. If you would like to sign up to become a contributor, please go to submit.shutterstock.com. And if you missed part of the live stream or would like to watch the entire thing again, please visit our blog on Shutterstock to check out the archive. And once again, thanks to our partners Production Hub and Sony and Video Guys for sponsoring our event. Rob is now going to be giving away signed copies of the book, Stock Footage Millionaire. Please remember to drop off your business cards in the bowl over there because Rob is going to be selecting the winner of the Sony Vegas Pro editing software and the 1-year subscription to Adobe Creative Cloud for Teams, compliments of Video Guys. So that'll be happening in about 20 minutes. Thanks.